Welcome back to Chat Shit. Let's recap the Richmond Tigers 2025 season.
Well, at first, looking at 2024, they just had 2 wins with the 21 losses. But going into 2025, they actually won 5 games, which is really, really unexpected. And after losing several key players and entering the season with the youngest list in the competition, expectations were rock bottom. We both said we wouldn't be surprised if they finished the year with the wooden spoon and even went winless. We both mentioned that at the start of the season. Richmond managed 5 wins. That's a seriously impressive return given their current list and talent level.
Absolutely pissing down here with the turn. Marcus has kicked up.
Jesus!
Usain Bolt wouldn't get him now.
The legend becomes immortal.
So if we touch on the highlights of this Richmond season, where I really agree that they overperformed and exceeded expectations. They won 5 more games than I expected them to win.
Yeah.
And in contrast to West Coast, I think there were, if we compare two teams deep in the rebuild, I think there were a good amount of young players for Richmond that showed really positive development throughout the year.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on those players later. But then in terms of their senior players as well, guys like Tim Taranto and Nick Vlaston both had elite years as their senior players. And I reckon that's so important to set the standard for the young players in the team. 20 Brownlow votes for Tim Taranto in a 5-win team is extremely impressive. I haven't seen those numbers since Gaz at Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And then Nick Vlaston, in my view, is the best medium-sized defender in the competition alongside Tom Stewart.
And probably stiff to miss out on All-Australian as well.
I was going to have that in my low lights of the season.
Right, yeah,
but he got robbed of his All-Australian blazer, which that hurt me. But those two players, along with others, Jacob Hopper and Dion Prestia when he was back, both performing at a really high level. It's really good to show the young guys how it's done and to help them with their development.
I like it. My breakup player of the year for Richmond was Seth Campbell.
Yeah.
So he played 22 games, kicked 28 goals in just his second season at age 20, averaging obviously over a goal a game. He became like a genuine spark. It was at that game where it was the backflip he did against Carlton in the first game of the season, really gets the crowd involved and shows signs of being that long-term sort of fan favourite. It's really tough to kick goals in a team that like Richmond at the moment, where the ball isn't necessarily in the forward half. You can't create a lot of pressure, can't keep it in there. So yeah, kicking 28 goals from just 22 games, really good. And like you said, my surprise performer was Tim Taranto.
Yeah.
So he showed a lot more composure and impact this season. We felt like he moved away from that hack-it forward style of the past years and became more of a complete midfielder, something that Richmond really thought they were getting from GWS a few years ago. He just sort of fit into that mould. Let's look at some of the lows.
I think it's fair to say there weren't too many lowlights.
Yeah.
Because Richmond, they knew that this was a rebuilding year, and I think even their most diehard fans wouldn't have expected them to win 5 games.
Yeah.
But it started off with a negative their season, with a pre-season injury to Josh Smiley, who, along with Sam Lawler, was meant to be really exciting in their midfield. So really keen to see him in 2026. Then Nick Vlaston being completely robbed of his first All-Australian blazer, as I said.
Stiff.
So stiff.
Yeah.
And then, other than that, I really don't think there were too many lows, and I think they should be really pleased with the development that they made.
I mean, if Vlaston plays in any other top 8 side, plays the exact same way the entire season, he's a lock for All-Australian. I've got one. I found it really tough to create a low, but I've just written Tom Lynch just because of that one on-field performance. I think it was against North Melbourne, where he really lashed out after being... he's being doubled and triple teamed the whole year, but he just needs to show a stronger leadership role on the field. And his suspension, which was following that moment of frustration, probably sent the wrong message to a young side, and he's one of the leaders now. So I think he really needs to step up and play that sort of leadership role. Doesn't need to kick 60 goals a year, just needs to be there, be a target in the forward line.
Yeah, and then the biggest moments of the year that I think most represent this Richmond Tigers season, I've got 2. I think the biggest of the year for them had to be their win over Gold Coast in round 6.
Oh, yeah.
We look back now. On the day, Richmond played an electric brand of footy that I touched on earlier. They're explosive, they move quickly when they're playing well and playing confidently, and they just have an elite level of pressure when they're at their best. And that can topple a team that has more experienced and established talent than you. And we showed that. We were talking about effort on an earlier episode of the podcast. And this produced the biggest upset of the year.
Comfortably, yeah.
Yeah, against a team that we look back now went on to win 16 games, including a final.
Yeah.
And gave Brisbane a run for their money in a semi-final.
Yeah.
And then the second moment for me was the Tom Brown chase down tackle to save the game against West Coast. And I say that this was representative of their season because, 1, it was the greatest chase down tackle I've ever seen. And 2, it was not the only moment that they had like that. Maurice Rioli had
the smothers.
several moments throughout the year with huge smothers. I think also in the same game he had some great smothers and a chase down tackle.
Yeah.
And I think this is what this Richmond team is all about, is that they're going to have great talent coming through, but in the meanwhile, I think they're breeding a really great culture of effort and just constantly giving it 110%.
I like it. And as far as a rating goes out of 10 for the season, I was really high on them. I gave them a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
I think you couldn't really ask for much more, considering we expected them to have 0 wins this season. And that was a genuine prediction that we thought that team, losing Shai Bolton, losing Liam Baker, losing Jack Graham, to win 5 games and, like you said, have those highlights, give the fan base something to look forward to, I thought was really huge. Exceeding expectations, 9 out of 10.
Yeah. I went with a 7 out of 10. I think the 9 out of 10, there's great justification for that. I'm just leaving room for the real high performers this year.
I like it.
But I think I don't hate your rating at all.
And we'll just look into the trade and draft period. So they were really quiet in the trade period. They brought in Patrick Rechko from Geelong, really unknown player at AFL level. So we'll see how that turns out. And they lost Tyler Young. So very inactive in the trade period. Didn't get better or worse on paper, but stayed on course with their rebuild. And they have, in the first round, they have picks 3 and 4. So should be able to add a lot of top-end talent there as well.
I think part of the reason for their inactivity is that they're all about the future right now, and so they're not going to be trading away any of their picks to pick up players unless it's a very young player, but teams aren't going to want to give that sort of player away. And then second, they might have been more active than we thought, but you wouldn't really find out about it because players probably don't want to go to Richmond right now.
It's true.
A lot of players. I think that might have been the case, that teams like Richmond and West Coast might have been more active than we heard about. Now looking forward to 2026. They're not going to be playing finals, and that's okay. They're going to be continuing to rebuild, and the main goals, I think, for the club will be, 1, to build on the promise that they did show in 2025 and continue to develop those young players, and to be as competitive as possible in every single game.
I like that. I've highlighted a superstar, up-and-comer, and a make-or-break player. So my superstar was Nick Vlauston. As we discussed in the episode, he's really unlucky to miss out on All-Australian honours and continues to be the defensive rock Richmond need. My up-and-comer, I'd said Sam Layla. So he's got the talent to really excite Richmond into 2026 and unfortunately missed most of 2025 through injury. And also Taj Houghton was a big player towards the end of the season for Richmond. And he's another young guy that'll hope to bring them forward into the future. And for their make or break player, I wrote Jaden Shaw. Now, as one of the senior top tier players that Richmond have, and there aren't many, as we talked about with Tom Lynch and Vlauston earlier, they really need to continue to put out performances, be a role model for the younger guys in the team, and really show what it's like to win. Being part of the three-peat as well, he really knows what it's like to win these games, finish on top of the ladder, and just be a role model for the guys.
Yeah, I've also highlighted 3 very important players for Richmond's next season. One is Sam Banks, who I think was the young player who showed as much promise as anyone. They want the footy in his hands. He's such a good ball user and such a good decision maker. I think he had a game with 30 plus touches towards the end of the year and averaged about 20 plus. Then a second for me is Luke Traynor, who wasn't consistently selected, but I think when he's a very raw young talent, and he's still very skinny and hasn't fully developed his body, but with another full off-season and pre-season into him, with some strength and conditioning training, I think he showed a lot as an intercept key defender. And then, and I think he will be really key to come out of this rebuild as an important player for them. And then a third for me is Sam Lawler, who you mentioned, who is going to have to be their superstar. He's going to have to be their Harley Reid or whatever it is, just like the player who emerges as a real superstar out of this young core.
Yeah, I just wrote a little, like, what Richmond's main goal for the year would be, and I think just replicate the fight and competitiveness that they showed in 2025, but just cut down on those blowout losses. It felt like, I know it happens to a young core, when they do go down early in that first or second quarter, they really seem to fall away, and just sort of maintaining that strong mentality and belief going into each game and just play out each game, I think is really important. But just for the fans, the guys that are still here watching, like, who are you most excited to see develop in 2026? They're an extremely young side, Richmond, with a lot of promise showed in 2025. There are definitely names that we haven't mentioned. We'd love you to let us know. We'll be active in the comments, and we'll see you all in the next one.